Here's the good news. You don't have to be a sleazy salesperson to make great money as a coach. In this video, I'm about to show you exactly how to sell coaching without being salesy. I use these tips to close nearly $1 million in coaching sales personally. So if you're ready to learn how to sell coaching authentically and make 6 figures or more doing it, keep watching because I'm about to show you how. Hey, my name's Jason Moss. I'm a multi-6-figure business coach, and I've helped thousands of coaches launch and grow their businesses. And look, the sales tips I'm about to share with you, super important to your success when it comes to getting more coaching clients. If you want to know how to do that in your coaching business, how to get on track to sign 2, 3, 4, or more high-paying coaching clients month after month, I put together a free client attraction guide you're definitely going to want to check out that walks through my best advice to help you do this. And it's completely free. All you got to do is click the link above or in the description below to go download that right now. Tip number 1 when it comes to selling without being salesy is to get your intentions right. I can often tell where a coach is in terms of their intentions when I ask them this question: what do you think about in the 5-minute period before you get on a sales call with a potential client? And I hear from a lot of coaches who say, Jason, in that period of time, I'm pumping myself up. I'm like, you're gonna close this deal. Like, you're gonna get the client. Like, I'm gonna crush it on this sales call. And if that's you, there's no judgment here, but you're probably leaving a lot of money every month on the table. And here's why. Most people don't want to get on the phone with someone who just wants to sell them, whose only job and only intention is to close a deal. It doesn't feel good. It actually feels like crap when you get on a sales call with someone who you can tell, like, even if you're not consciously aware of it, you can kind of feel that energy of like, this person's just trying to sell me. Like, they're not really here for me. They're not really here to help me. That sucks. Nobody wants that. And that will often push great clients away. So the first thing you want to do if you want to sell more and also sell without being salesy is to shift your intention from self, from I want to get a client, from I want to close this deal, to service. What is your job on a sales call? It's not fundamentally to make a sale. It's actually to show up in the heart of service, to understand where someone's at and what they really want and what the gap is between where they are today and where they want to be, and to help them figure out what the best solution is to close that gap and help them get what they want. Now, if that means the solution is your coaching program, if you honestly feel that's the best way to help them, great. You can sell unapologetically from a place of service. And if it's not, we can send them away or send them off with some free resources to help them. And this sounds obvious. It's like when I talk about it, you're like, yeah, I get it. But it's hard to do this, especially when your income is riding on a conversation. You want to make a sale. It's natural. Like, we all have that part of ourselves. So this is not about like throwing that away and pretending that doesn't exist, but more and more grounding into that place where you're more focused on someone else than you're focused on yourself. And it changes the energy of a conversation. Other people will feel it, whether they're conscious of it or not. It will make it easier for other people to open up and be honest and vulnerable with you. Oftentimes, paradoxically, it will actually lead to more sales, because when you're focused on other people, you're able to more effectively serve them through that conversation. People want to work with someone like that versus the person who you can tell, they're just in it to make a sale. So where are your intentions when you show up to a sales call? Asking yourself honestly, this is not about judgment or shame or criticism. It's very easy to slip into more of that self-focused place in sales conversations. I, have been caught in that in the past, and I still struggle with that sometimes. But more and more, kind of grounding into that place of service is going to be one of the most effective shifts you can make to sell without being salesy. And tip number 2 is to be a problem solver, not a product pusher. This kind of ties into tip number 1. When you realize your job on a sales call is not necessarily to sell your coaching, it's actually fundamentally to help someone get what they really want. What you can do is you can start to orient your focus much more around uncovering what are those problems that this person is experiencing, and how can I uncover those? And then if I can help with those, position what I do as a solution to their problem. Great salespeople are problem solvers. They don't just go into a sales conversation looking to pitch their stuff. This is really bad sales. Like, when you show up to a conversation and you don't even know whether or not someone wants or needs something or has a problem that your coaching can solve, and already you're trying to pitch your stuff, bad sales. It doesn't feel good, and it doesn't actually work that well. Versus going into a conversation not with the primary goal of selling your coaching, but saying, what is this person struggling with? What are those challenges that they're experiencing? I get this question information a lot from coaches in our Coaching Launchpad community, where we help coaches launch and grow their businesses past that 10K a month mark. And one of the big questions I often get is, I see an opportunity, someone who I feel like might need my coaching, or I see a business that I might be able to partner with. How do I approach that conversation? How do I go up to them and, pitch my services? And my answer is always the same, which is, rather than going into a conversation pitching your services, go into that conversation exploring what those challenges are that person is experiencing. So you can go up to someone and say, tell me a little bit more about what's been going on in this area of your life lately. Are you happy with how things have been in terms of your business? Or tell me a little bit more about what's been going on in your relationship right now. Like, how have things been with your partner the last 6 months? Just asking these questions and doing that exploration to uncover what those problems or challenges are. Then you can hop in and you can say, okay, well, here's what I have, or here's the coaching that I have. And I think this would be a really great solution to solve that problem. Radically changes a sales conversation. And rather than being a product pusher, someone who just goes into a conversation trying to sell their stuff, you're a problem solver. That is how you sell without being salesy. And tip number 3 is to leverage internal versus external pressure. There are 2 sources of fuel and motivation when it comes to helping somebody make a decision in a sales process. There is what we call external pressure, which is typically like the pressure that salespeople, coaches, business owners try to push on from the outside in to somebody else to help them make a decision more quickly. This would be things like, hey, you got to sign up before the end of the week because, the promo is going to be ending on Friday. Or, sign up in the next 24 hours and you'll get, $1,000 off. This is external pressure. And, look, there's nothing terribly wrong with using that as a part of selling. I'm not a big fan of it. And the reason I'm not a big fan of it is because there's a much more powerful form of pressure that you can help someone connect to. And when I say pressure, I think that, has a negative connotation, but really motivation to wanting to take action. Internal pressure is a source of pressure, a source of motivation that comes from the inside out. It's more about someone else's desires and dreams and goals and the cost of not taking action. So for example, if I'm talking to a coach on a sales call and I might ask a question earlier on in that sales call, like, well, tell me about what happens if things don't change. And they might say, well, I've got a limited runway here. Like, my business really isn't doing that well. And I've got maybe 6 months left in savings. And if that doesn't change, I'm probably going to go back to get a 9-to-5 job. So at the end of the call, if someone's like, yeah, well, let me think about it, or I need to wait, a couple months, I might say, cool, we can definitely do that. But you told me earlier on in our call that you got 6 months of runway to work with. And I'd love to help you get this moving fast so that you don't have to go back to a 9-to-5 in 6 months. So we can hold off on this, but I'd rather see you, given that we don't have a lot of time here, moving forward more quickly so we can help you get to where you want to be and out of that 9-to-5 that you really don't want. Now I'm talking about internal pressure. This is helping somebody connect to their own reasons why making a decision now is the right move for them. And when you can do a good job at this form of pressure, and again, I hate the word pressure, it has a negative connotation, motivation, we can just use that word, is so much more effective because it speaks to someone's own internal reasons for making a change. And I often feel like external pressure, like you need to sign up before Friday, because the price is going to go up, that kind of stuff is like lazy selling. It's like when we don't do a good enough job eliciting someone's internal reasons for wanting to make a change, we got to rely on that more. And oftentimes that's going to come off much more pushy and much more salesy. So asking yourself, how can you do a good job on sales calls eliciting internal reasons for someone wanting to make a change and holding them to those reasons to help them make a shift and to help create that sense of urgency or commitment to make a decision. Now, this is a big part of what we teach people inside Coaching Launchpad. We have a whole sales process, a whole framework that we walk you through that you can literally plug and play into your business to start making more sales and to do it in a way that doesn't feel salesy. And this is a big piece of that. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for more support with this, to join us inside Coaching Launchpad. We've got links down below this video where you can apply to work with us on a deeper level if that's something that's feeling aligned for you. And tip number 4 to sell without being salesy is to practice radical transparency. So the thing that makes selling uncomfortable sometimes is when you're not honest and transparent about what your intentions are. When you go into a conversation with someone and there's a sense of there's something unspoken or unsaid that I'm not acknowledging, that I'm trying to sell you something, that there's a sense of ulterior motive that's not entirely clear, that doesn't feel good to people. And I'm not blaming you on that. I think this is something that I've done in the past too, and it's easy to slip into this sometimes. But one of the things I love doing whenever I can, in my business, is to practice radical transparency in terms of just making my intentions clear and being direct with people about the fact that I am here to sell. And there's something that I'm going to sell them. For example, I do this often when we run masterclasses. Like, everyone knows when you go to a masterclass, there's going to be a sales pitch. But sometimes like people show up and they do masterclasses and it's like, we try to pretend it's not like, there's not going to be like a sales pitch. I like to flip that on its head. And so in the beginning of a masterclass, I'll say, here's what you're going to learn. We're going to cover X, Y, and Z. And at the end, I'm going to try to sell you something. We're going to talk about my Coach and Launchpad program, and I'm going to talk about what those next steps are for some of you who are interested in taking, that leap and working with me on a deeper level. And so just by doing that, by being transparent about the fact that there is going to be a pitch, I've created more trust and more connection with you. And there's not that sense of like, there's something unsaid here. So how can you do this in your business? How can you practice that radical transparency when there is an opportunity to be more transparent about what your intentions are? I think that's a great way of selling without being salesy. And people will trust you so much more when you just make it known what those intentions actually are. And finally, tip number 5, this is a big one too, is give yourself permission to mess it up. Here's the truth. Learning how to sell with integrity, with authenticity, from a place that doesn't feel salesy, from a place that feels good for both people, takes a lot of practice. And the way that you get to that is by screwing up a lot. And when I look back over my journey and the hundreds of sales calls that I've done, time I spent as a director of sales, leading a multi-7-figure sales team, my God, I've had so much experience selling, and I've made so many mistakes on sales calls. So many moments when I look back, I'm like, oh, that was terrible. Like I got completely caught in like neediness in that conversation. I just was like way too pushy, or I said completely the wrong thing, or I just bulldozed through because I wasn't really, paying attention to my intuition there. And I really probably upset someone in that conversation. And I've made so many mistakes, and that's normal. It's a normal part of selling and learning how to sell well. And it's easy to beat yourself up for this. I do this too. I still make mistakes all the time on sales calls. And I've learned over time, to do those conversations better and to show up in a way that feels more aligned and authentic for me. But it's been a process, especially if you haven't done that many calls. I just want to normalize that, like, this is a skill and it's part science and part art. And it's going to take a long time to like figure out how to do this well. So what I do want to do is just remind you that, like, if you've ever had a conversation like that, or if maybe you're watching this and you're like, yeah, I feel like last week I had that conversation. Like, it's okay. Like, it's all good. You're going to make mistakes, and sometimes being out of integrity and making those decisions where it's like, you were needy or whatever it is that got in the way, like there was fear there for you. You were worried about paying the bills or whatever it was. If that got in the way, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not like you've, terribly screwed up. Like, you're normal just like the rest of us. This is a part of learning how to sell. So giving yourself permission to mess up can often take off that pressure and just allow you to move through this process as you're learning and growing in terms of your sales without all that guilt and that shame that just keeps us stuck, and oftentimes actually, makes it harder to learn the things we need to learn in order to do better. So I'm hoping these 5 sales tips help you sell more authentically in a way that feels less salesy and more aligned for you. If you're wanting to know how to dial in your marketing, how to get on track to signing 2, 3, 4, or more high-paying coaching clients month after month into your coaching business, I definitely recommend you download my free client attraction guide. Walks through so much of my best advice on how to make this happen. And it's completely free. I'd love to share it with you. All you got to do is click the link above or in the description down below. And if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely going to love that one too. So click the link on the screen to go check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.